Hello everyone, Tom from the Airsoft Headquarters here, and welcome back. Today we have the KWA LM4C PTR that we are going to do a in-depth review on. Starting off, KWA is very well known for being a very high-end gas blowback rifle company. They are very well known and very commonly purchased in the airsoft market for gas blowback rifles for good reasons, being a very realistic one-to-one feature compared to real firearms, featuring a very realistic looking bolt carrier group, very realistic heavy weight, as well as, if I can pop this open, having a complete breakdown and disassembly, very similar to that of a real rifle. For those of you that have or have worked on any of the real firearms, you know that that is very, very, very similar to those of real rifles. So very awesome that these are available. Of course, there are Airsoft AEG rifles that are also going to be very similar, very realistic, such as the PTS rifles. Some of the higher end ones that go for $1,200. However, we're not looking at those, and quite frankly, I can't afford those to bring them in and do any sort of review on. But the best I can get my hands on is the KWA LM4C PTR. Now we are in fact carrying before they come out with their LM4D rifle, which we saw previewed at SHOT Show. Quick little teaser, before we actually get any of those are going to be coming stock with CO2 magazines, as well as having a fully adjustable FPS bolt assembly, which here in the northern states of the United States, here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Washington, you know, all the northern based states where it's colder temperatures, gas blowback rifles are not really all that efficient, even using the more modern gas systems. So CO2 pistols or CO2 rifles are more commonly found if a player did want to have something that does have a blowback feature. But since KWA is coming out with their CO2 rifle that comes stock with CO2 magazines, that is going to be a very cool feature. Cannot wait for those. But let's get down to the rifle. Obviously, very clearly, I removed my orange flash hider that was standard on KWA rifles or any rifle that is being distributed in the US, and I replaced it with a Gemtech 300 blackout suppressor, or mock suppressor, I should state. So I just did that for aesthetics. Orange tip does come off fairly easily for anyone that wants to do that. Going farther down, this is going to be a A2 style of triangular front sight that does have adjustments on the top there for elevation. If anyone really wants to use their iron sights professionally, you can do that. A bayonet locking block, if anyone really wants to put one of the pointy stabby things on there. A hinged sling plate that really does nothing but move around, make a whole lot of noise for me. So I don't use it, it's just gonna hang out there. Obviously, as you can see, I took my Handguard, the polymer ones, and I replaced them with the Magpul ones. There's nothing wrong with the ones that are coming on the LM4C. They're actually a very good quality compared to a lot of the other polymer handguards that are available on the market. However, I am a Magpul slut, so anything that I can possibly fit Magpul onto, I am going to. It also helps that the KWA LM4 is actually closer to mil-spec compared to standard AEGs. So the Magpul furniture, you know, even with the heat shield on there, just fits right on without any sort of issue. Now, I may have to spend a minute wiggling it into place, but there we go. But it still locks in and holds really easily, and it's very, very solid. With the triangular handguard, it does have that delta ring that pulls down, so any type of furniture that can go onto the handguard as a replacement, such as these guys, which can do any sort of rail system or any of the cool Magpul stuff, that can fit on there. Or if you're a fan of the RAS systems, which I don't have any as examples, but those will fit on there as well. Going back, this is going to be a completely fully built aluminum receiver, and it's thoroughly reinforced. The rifle itself comes in at 8.5 pounds, so very, very heavy. Even with the shorter CQB model, This is very, very heavy. Awesome for anyone that wants to do any sort of realistic training. That weight factor does come into play. Obviously, we have the shorter CQB rear iron sight, which still has full adjustments of windage elevation and that adjustable aperture on the back there for daytime or nighttime operations. Going down on the receiver of the rifle, on the left-hand side is KWA Performance LM4C PTR, caliber 6mm. Serial number, that serial number. Since this is the last one that I have in the store, I cannot verify if this is in fact individual serial numbers or if they're all just one serial number all stamped on there. I sold all of the LM4Cs that I brought in very quickly, so that's why I'm not able to check it out. Standard right-hand magazine release. Now this is where we kind of get into that more realistic feature. So the bolt release, which is featured back here, if you run out of BBs or use an empty magazine, one of the gas ones work specifically, if you pull back on the charging handle here, like so, that bolt is going to hold open, just like with a real firearm. So you would need to either release the magazine, you can do it with the magazine still in there, but that bolt catch is still protruded outwards. So if you press inwards, that bolt assembly is going to smack forward because of the recoil spring that sits inside the buffer tube. I'll show you all that in a minute. The trigger internally is going to work very similarly to that of a real firearm. So you have to have the charging handle engaged so you can actually engage the trigger. If you don't, nothing really is going to happen. Functioning, safe only when it is engaged. That is the only way you can actually get your safety engaged. Otherwise, if you go to semi or full auto, pull the trigger and that hammer is forward, you cannot physically put it into safe. That's very much like the real firearms as well. Grip obviously changed out for a different one of the Magpul ones. The gas rifles use a locking system very similarly to that of the real firearms, which is just a single bolt through the top of the grip. I'm not a huge fan of the A2 style of grip with that weird finger groove thing on there. So obviously changed it out for one of the Magpul MOEs. Towards the back, oh, quick note, the forward assist actually does function. So if for some reason this gets locked back, you can push that bolt forward, like so. The sling plate is going to be for left and right hand sling mounts for anyone that wants to do right hand specific, or if they want to mount it off to the left and be a little kooky, they can do that. And obviously change the stock out for one of the Magpul MOEs. The one that would be coming on the KWA LM4C is the LE, which is fairly standard, fairly basic, still one of the nicer constructed ones, but I'm a Magpul slut, so obviously Magpul going on there. So as of this configuration right now, I only have a couple of selections here on the stock for any sort of sling mounts, as well as having the two that come on the back of the sling plate. What is nice for the KWA LM4s is that they are going to be more mil-spec, as obviously stated by that Magpul furniture. So the Magpul MOE stock fits on there really tight, not loose. The MOE grip, the FDE one specifically does have some rubberized texture. That's why I went with FDE instead of the tan. So the real firearm accessories can fit on here. Really, really easy for anyone that wants to do any sort of real firearm training or drills, stuff like that, while using airsoft-based products. Aftermarket, you are somewhat limited. Obviously, in the box, you are going to have the standard Stanag style magazine that holds 30 rounds. As far as I'm aware, everything that is going to be a standard size magazine is going to be a 30 round magazine. You can get double drum, or I think a single drum magazine option that is going to be a high cap style, but you will need to get a HPA hookup in order to actually push all of the air into the magazine in order to fire that many BBs, because the gas reservoir just by itself isn't going to be enough. As we will demonstrate in a couple of minutes when we go do our chrono and our shooting. But to show you, one of the cool things about gas blowbacks, especially gas blowback rifles, obviously it's going to blow back. It's going to feature very much like a real firearm, so you can do all those crazy John Wick double taps while you're out on the airsoft field. The downside though, especially here in the northern states, I don't know how they function down in the south, but here up north, gas pressure shrinks as we get into colder seasons. So around that 50-degree temperature range is when we start to see a huge decrease in performance when it comes to any sort of gas operated systems, especially rifles, shotguns, pistols, snipers, all those types of systems that use green gas have a very huge performance loss. That is why most pistols or shotguns or rifles, anything like that, if they are able to take CO2, that is the preferred option. We don't get nearly as much performance loss with using that higher pressure CO2. However, I will be testing the Neutral 3.0, some of the nicer cans. This is for my personal stock, so I kept and hid this for quite a while. So we're gonna use this, we're gonna break it out, use it for a special occasion just for testing the KWA LM4 so you guys can see the performance and what is going to occur. So before that happens, let's go over to the Chrono Station and show you what it's going to look like stock. All right, so this is going to get a little weird, so bear with me. So to test the KWA LM4 that I have here, we have an unfilled magazine, a filled magazine, and 2 mags that are sitting in the cooler that are for a cold temperature. So we'll be able to analyze what the temperature of the magazine is using a little heat laser thing, and that way we'll be able to see what the velocity is or how far into the magazine we go based on that temperature of magazine, which should be a reflection of the ambient temperature of the environment that you would be in. So first, I want to show you how long it takes to fill the standard KWA magazine. Empty magazine. Oh, there's a little bit in there to preserve O-rings. So completely empty. Let's go. That was about 16 seconds. We're gonna do the same thing on this guy, or at least top it off at least. Cool. This one we'll use to test dry fire in 80 degrees. That's something that I should mention. It's 80 degrees out right now. So we're going to chrono test with the standard magazine. iPro. .343. All right, so highest velocity was the first shot at 335 or 435. Excuse me, I'm becoming dyslexic. Minimum velocity out of 10 shots of 360 for the average of 384. Let's keep going, shall we? Apparently I only loaded 15 shots, but out of that other 5, about 380. So it's what is left of the magazine for gas. We're going to dry fire full auto so you guys can feel or hear that. Pretty fast. That's me spamming the trigger on semi-automatic though. Magazine got really cold. Okay. So now we're gonna do a dry fire test. How many shots do we get? All right, I'm currently at 125. I'm sure you guys can hear it as well, but the bolt is cycling a little bit more sluggish at 125 rounds. So 146 is the grand total. At 137 or 138 is when we got a couple of double feeds, which is not a great thing. So 146. All right, so the next test we're gonna do is the cold magazines, which I've got the cooler right here. Oh. Black Rifle Espresso Mocha. Looks like I had that chilling in there. Hashtag not sponsored, but Black Rifle, if you really wanna sponsor me, greatly appreciated, love the products. Oh, we got another two in here. We just gotta move those out of the way. And we got drain right there. How convenient. Ooh, those gas mags are wet. So I think one is the one that we need. Yep. Okay, look at how wet that is. That's pretty cool. That's a really cool aesthetic. So the temperature on the magazine is 40.1, 39.9. So this is what the performance is going to be at 40-degree temperature. Now remember, I am in a warehouse that is 80 degrees. So, oh shoot. I just gotta remember how many shots there are. All right, so the first shot was 370, and then the 10th shot is 332. All right, so that got through 40 shots total. And the last couple of readable velocities is just under 300 feet per second. So 297 is what the final score is. So that should tell you exactly what the temperature difference is, or at least what the performance difference is with the variable temperature. So in an 80-degree ambient environment, like I did, testing with the dry magazine, ooh, that's cold. Put that on the back of my neck. So with a 80-degree magazine, or at least a room temperature magazine in a 80-degree environment, is going to result in 140 shots, roughly. And that's at a relatively acceptable pace. You know, you're not doing full auto, you're not spamming the trigger, not taking super long bursts in order to conserve the gas. I think that was an acceptable pace. Versus a cold magazine, which was to simulate a magazine from a colder environment, such as early spring or late fall or even winter environments up here in Wisconsin. That's a little bit cold. Ooh, that's way colder. So the colder magazine, which was at 40 degrees for the ambient temperature, resulted in 40 total shots. That's 100 rounds less, and also resulted in a lower velocity overall compared to the 80-degree magazine. So that should tell you something as well. But to take it a step a little further, we're going to take a cold magazine and we're going to have to fill it with BBs. Of course, checking the temperature before filling with BBs and then after, and seeing what the results are. So let's do that. Also, gotta fill the mag. So that was about 12 total seconds for a fill. The magazine itself, after filling it with gas, is about 50 degrees. So I've actually already loaded it with BBs. So, whoops. So 40 degrees, and then fill it with gas to bring the temperature of the magazine up to 50 degrees. 10-degree difference. Then oh, So the first shot was way lower at 357. Ooh. So only got through 6 total rounds on a super, super cold, super chilled magazine. You can actually see that the bolt carrier group, the nozzle at least, froze up just a little bit. It's not supposed to be all dusty like that. Looks cool, but not exactly what we're going for. We've also got multiple BBs stuck up inside the chamber there. Or hop up, excuse me. Stuck in the hop up. Oh. That's your classical double load, so we gotta take a couple minutes to get this apart and fixed. All right, so we got that cleared. No issue now. Even with a empty magazine, looks just fine now. So we're gonna talk about why that happened and how to possibly not let that happen if you did want to pick up one of the LM4s. But let's head over to the accuracy test. All right, so accuracy test with the KWA LM4C, firing .20 BBs at 25 feet. I think this is gonna be a little bit better of a angle to see me. Woo! All right, kicking her out to 50. I'm gonna aim a little bit lower on the body because of the lift. Well, I guess I didn't load enough. Lock it back. So slide in, release. 3. Oh, were you keeping count by track? Yeah. We'll call that good. I feel like I shot more than 3 for sure. Cool beans. All right, welcome back to the studio. And first, we're gonna talk about the accuracy results. So looking at the top of the target towards the forehead, that was a 25-foot grouping, 10 total shots. I was aiming for the white dot using iron sights, really confident that all 10 shots were gonna make it somewhere in the head profile. No issues there. Moving on down. At the 50-foot grouping, I marked all of those with a blue X so we can easily distinguish the 50-foot from the 100-foot. So 50 feet, that's a 12-inch diameter spread. Overall, not too bad at 50 feet. Again, using iron sights, so there's always going to be a factor of human or shooter error. But overall, for 50 feet from a CQB length M4 that is going to be gas blowback, results are pretty good. Knocking this out even further to 100 feet, here we get a little bit more widespread, which is fairly normal for any sort of airsoft rifle. The spread itself is going to double in size from 1 foot to about 2 feet, 2.5 feet at the widest stretch. I fired 15 total shots onto the target and 14 total hit the paper. Now, even with .20s with a right to left hand wind direction, all of these for some reason impacted on the right hand side of the target for whatever reason. That could be shooter influence, so keep that in mind as well. But with a .20, and these were pretty heavy winds, with a .20, I was actually very, very, very impressed with the results. hitting 14 out of 15 shots onto the target, even with that crosswind. Now, I wasn't factoring in wind at all. At 100 feet, I was using just one eye, aiming through the iron sights, so I was not able to track the BBs in. So all it was just me aiming, pulling the trigger, and just trusting that the iron sights are on and the BBs are gonna go where they should. And obviously they did. By a vast majority, all of those BB impacts hit paper. Now this is just put the rifle down. This is just a target that is, even with the paper, is really about torso sized, even for me, a normal sized human. I think I'm normal sized anyway. So 14 out of 15 shots at 100 feet all day without any sort of issues using those iron sights. Really, really good results. Of course, these results are purely by the iron sights that are on here and via the shooter myself, with any sort of optic that is going to increase the consistency of the shot placement, even if there is going to be a wider range of shooters. So keep that in mind as well, off to the side there. Next thing to talk about is the Chrono Results. Obviously, during one of those tests, we did have a type of failure. That was with the cold magazine that we had to load the gas into, if I remember correctly. So that type of gas failure is, I guess, fairly normal, or it's standard on gas rifles or gas pistols. It's not a common occurrence. In fact, it's fairly rare as long as the rifle or the pistol is well maintained and all the O-rings are good condition. What I am going to assume is that the magazine, with all the shots that I was using, even with the cold magazine, with the gas pressure changes, which results in a cooldown effect of the gas itself cooling down, which is going to be the magazine cooling down even more, coincidentally happening on one magazine out of the two. In my opinion, I thought it was going to happen on both magazines, that weird jettison effect of the cooldown effect, which all that is those cold temperatures are going to hold the valve O-rings open, which is how all that gas was escaping. That is what I was assuming was going to happen on both those magazines with those cold temperatures. However, it only happened on one of the magazines, which could be the result of a higher quality product, such as the KBWA LM4. With other types of gas pistols that I have had, wide range of brands from lower to higher quality, usually occur or usually have that jettison effect regardless of gas or CO2 within those extremely cold temperatures, like that 30 to 40 degree temperature range, you know, when it's late fall, early spring, or even in the winter on one of the warmer winter days where me and my buddies are out playing airsoft in the snow, trying to have some fun while we can. So it is not a permanent flaw, and it is not something that is going to normally occur. However, it is something that you should be aware of, and you should have some idea as to what happens. A majority of the time, the magazine valve O-rings getting caught because of the colder temperatures usually is what is at fault. So as long as you just maintain your rifle, maintain the magazines, you're using good gas, you're oiling and cleaning it on a regular basis, you're going to have really, really good results. Here's where we get to the pros and cons of using a gas blowback rifle. Starting with the pros, it is a very, very cool feature. It is a great training aspect. The weight distribution, like I said before, is very similar to that of a real rifle. And having that recoil feature is going to be very much a cool factor. You know, all of us airsofters are just nerds at the end of the day, and we want to be just like the cool guys. And so what do the cool guys have? Very realistic rifles. So that is one pro. Some of the cons. The rifle setup is going to be very, very expensive. The LM4C by itself with the bare bones configuration is going to be selling for $340 here in the Airsoft Headquarters. The magazines by themselves, the PTS EPM magazines, the gas blowback ones, are selling for $60. No, $50, excuse me, $50. Which I purchased 3. $150. For a low capacity magazine count of only 30 rounds, $150 for 90 rounds. Not really the greatest as far as magazine capacity or having any sort of efficiency. Another pro, as you're playing and you're nearing the end of your magazine, when you are all out of ammo and that bolt locks back, then you know that you are out of ammo. Versus if you're using an AEG, which can coincidentally dry fire, if you're not tracking those BBs with your eyes and you're not hearing the impacts of the BBs against a building or brush, then you're not going to know that you are dry firing. So gas blowback, having that bolt hold open, you know you're empty, drop the magazine, put a new one in, and you're ready to rock and roll again. Con. These are going to be essentially money pits, especially if you want to put all the nice fancy accessories on here, such as the mag pull stuff on here, which I had from a previous build. So that wasn't too bad for me, but I did need to make the initial purchase. As well as the fact that with these green gas magazines, you are going to have to spend a lot of money to use the magazines by getting propane tanks or green gas cans, which you're gonna end up going through a lot of them. So you're gonna have to invest money into that as well. If you are using this as a training platform and you are someone who is a military or law enforcement officer, your spouse or possibly your children or even friends that are possibly uneducated and you want to help educate them about either airsoft or real firearms, this is going to be a good in-between option. Granted that it is very realistic, it is going to function and break down just like that of a real firearm. So with you close by, you would be able to, oh, I didn't pop this out enough. Never mind, I did. You would be able to break this apart, open it, and show them each of the individual parts, what the part names are, and show them how to do basic cleaning, basic maintenance, basic field stripping, stuff like that, which is always an excellent option for anyone that is going to be a fire enthusiast or anyone that is going to own a firearm in the future and are looking for cost-effective means for training. These are significantly cheaper, even including the cost of the magazines. Once you add it all up, these are going to be significantly cheaper compared to those of real rifles. So these are an option to look at. Another con, like I said before, is magazine capacity. These only hold 30 rounds. So that means these are about a quarter, right? 36, yeah. These are about a quarter capacity compared to the Elite Force magazines, and with the newer EPM ones, these are 1/8 capacity. Yeah, 1/8 capacity as far as BBs. So you're looking at carrying a lot of magazines in order to equal that of a standard mid cap. Another thing as well is that these magazines are freaking heavy. These are like 5-pound magazines versus the mid caps that I have here. I got nervous doing that. The mid caps that I have here are light as heck. These are what, 8 ounces, 11 ounces? They're light as heck. So weight distribution across your gear is something you need to consider as well. If you are a smaller frame or you don't have nearly as much muscle built up, or you may have back problems, stuff like that, carrying a bunch of heavy metal magazines are probably not the best option for you. That is something you should consider as well. So as far as the limited accessibility for aftermarket parts for upgradability or customization, really is kind of a good thing. When you think about it, if all the parts that are available are going to fit a LM4 with 0 issue, then great. That means less parts that you have to worry about putzing with or using a Dremel to modify in order to fit the LM4 for any sort of upgradability or customization. Then that's less worry you have to put into the rifle at all. There are different options, however, as far as upgrades. Of course, you can put any of the real firearm furniture onto your rifle for the stock grip handguard. The trigger, I think, is stuck as the LM4 trigger. You can get different magazine releases. PTS has a ambidextrous charging handle, which I am getting. There are upgraded recoil springs, which I am getting. There are upgraded bolt carrier groups, which I am getting. So I will be purchasing all of these parts in order to put into here so you guys can see the results of those. Even though the parts are limited, they're pretty accessible. It's not too bad. You know, AEGs are gonna have a plethora of aftermarket parts that you have to choose and be very specific as far as what parts you want to purchase for what build you are trying to do. With an LM4 type of system, the gas blowback rifle, you're limited, but you can still get the aftermarket parts if you want. In the current state that it is in, I think it's a great shooting option. So anyone that wants to pick up just a standard M4 gas blowback that you're going to get really good results on stock, and you do have the options aftermarket to upgrade and turn into an even better firing machine, you can do that as well. Of course, stay tuned in the future when I do put a couple of upgrade parts into here and we can see the results of that, as well as a little bit more research to see what specifically is available. Like, I'm trying to find different triggers that are available and seeing if I could possibly install that. I'm already looking on some of the MCX. I still need to do a 6-month review video on that and look at some of the aftermarket options that are now available as well. But this is about this guy right now. So if you guys do have any further questions, put them down in the comment section below. Of course, like and subscribe. If you are interested in this rifle and you did want to pick it up from your local Airsoft Headquarters Superstore, we do have these available, or should have them available fairly soon. Like I said before, we did run out of stock fairly easily, but we are putting another KWA order in, so we are able to get these in, and we will keep them in as long as you guys want them. And of course, stay tuned until around Christmas, New Year's time, when the LM4Ds become available. And once again, those are the CO2 stock rifles. I'm assuming that the CO2 is going inside of the magazine, and the bolt carrier group is supposed to have an adjustable velocity valve. So that is gonna be pretty awesome, specifically for Wisconsin. Anyway, you guys take care, stay safe, stay clean, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.